Welcome back to Thoughts of Ascendance of a Bookworm. This week is episode 6, Meeting. The episode starts in the forest with Mine and Lutz having a stare down. That said though, Lutz looks progressively more scared each time, and understandably so with Mine commanding he does everything she tells him. But with Lutz screaming, we find out that Mine just wanted to wash his hair with a simple all-in-one shampoo. It's still a mouthful to say, but it sure is fun. The idea that Lutz would have just ran away if Mine told him she wanted to wash his hair is interesting, because Lutz strikes me as a type that would like to stay clean. Maybe he just felt awkward having Mine wash his hair for him. When Lutz asks why the sudden makeover, Mine reminds us that first impressions are important and that Lutz had better dress his best for tomorrow. Whilst Lutz says it probably won't make much of a difference, research has shown that although not always the case, first impressions are very important and can have a lasting impact on how people view you. So whilst I like Lutz's nonchalant attitude, he might want to consider these things a little bit more. After Lutz has his hair washed, Mine asks Lutz what his goal is in becoming a merchant, because he can't get a referral and so it would be difficult to become an apprentice. This line suggests to me that you could enter a profession without becoming an apprentice, but it would be incredibly risky and difficult, although that's just my speculation. Lutz looks sad here, probably because these are the types of questions he has heard from countless others before. Furthermore, his lack of an answer implies that he doesn't have a goal, giving validity to Mine's concerns. Lutz instead asks Mine if she has a goal, to which she confidently replies that she does have a goal in mind. She even goes further to state that she has a goal for her second career choice of a merchant, by wanting to sell paper. Much like Lutz, I was shocked to hear this because it's a deviation from Mine's goal to read and sell books. However, Mine quickly explains to us that this world doesn't have a high demand for books, but paper would be very beneficial to this society. This foresight from Mine shows the difference between her and Lutz. Lutz is focused solely on achieving his dream of visiting other cities, and is trying to become a traveling merchant to achieve this, whereas I think Mine is thinking more long term. Sure, paper isn't books, but it's an essential material to make them. Not to mention its cheapness compared to parchment could make it accessible to the lower classes, enabling a growth of literacy rates, likely leading to an increase in the creation of literature. On top of that, Mine shows here that she understands the market. She knows that paper is in demand from her work at the gate, whilst books are in not so much demand, and has therefore planned a future in which she gets closer to her dream whilst also making a living. This small piece of dialogue demonstrates the differences between these two characters wonderfully, and how their approaches to their dreams are vastly different. To put it simply, whilst Lutz is seeing the trees, Mine is seeing the forest. She can see the bigger picture, which Lutz cannot. The skyline shot returns, but we now move to the day of the meeting, and we see Lutz and Mine waiting by the fountain where Mine and Otto agreed on last episode. And what's this? Lutz is now sporting some shiny hair. Great look. But we are then told that they're early, which Lutz finds strange, but Mine says it's better to be early than late, a sentiment I agree with all too well. After some time passes though, we spot Otto looking cool in his casual clothes, and Mine reminds Lutz about his greetings, and we can tell from his stutter that the nerves have kicked in, and it's cute that Mine holds his hand to reassure him. But then we see Otto seemingly greet someone else, and my, who's this dashing fellow? A bit of an angry face, but the outfit is looking great, and screaming money. Otto and the stranger then show up, and Otto and Mine exchange greetings, with Mine demonstrating her politeness and giving the soldier salute. Mine then introduces Lutz, and he takes about a 6-second pause before he greets them. The time it takes for him to respond, combined with the shot of him looking up at the two adults, really shows how nervous Lutz feels at this moment. Despite this, he boldly introduces himself and has a determined look on his face. The stranger then shows some interest in Mine, as she's Otto's assistant despite being unbaptized, and we can tell his focus is on her as we look through his eyes and see him assessing Mine. But we finally learn that this stranger is Benno, someone Otto knows from his travelling days, and tells us that he's a nice guy. We then receive more greetings, and Benno is impressed by Mine's politeness. However, before Benno even finishes his greetings, he is distracted by Mine's hairpin. After finding out that the hair stick is simply a piece of wood, he moves on to look at Mine's shiny hair. It's interesting that it's the physical appearance which Benno focuses on. We will later find out that his store specializes in clothing and beauty products, so it's fun to see how Benno immediately eyes up products he could sell. It's a nice detail to notice on rewatch, but also shows us that Benno is a true businessman. I love how Benno gets irritated when he discovers he won't easily get the recipe, as mine keeps it confidential. It shows us how Benno would have stolen the idea and sold it if he could. The conversation now moves on to the main purpose of the meeting, though, discussing Lutz becoming a travelling merchant. Otto instantly tells Lutz to forget it, though, and that it would be foolish to relinquish his citizenship. Not only is Otto being nice by not giving Lutz any false hope, but it also shows us that Lutz had probably never even heard of this, as he looks just as confused as mine here. Otto then explains, though, that it is the right to reside in any given city, and Benno continues by saying without one you have no proof of identity. We then find out that the limitations of not having citizenship are severe, not being able to get a job, rent a home, or get married. In relation to this, we get told a bit more about the baptism ceremony, learning that it is when a child receives their citizenship. We are also told that an outsider has to pay a fortune to get citizenship. We are then shown how ill-prepared Lutz would be for this trade, as he would struggle just to get basic necessities like water, as most travellers use family routes passed down through generations, which Lutz wouldn't have. However, Otto then delivers the finishing blow to Lutz's goal, as he informs him and us that the final goal of a travelling trader is to get citizenship. And so I imagine this route is often used for people from poorer villages, towns, and cities to become a citizen of a better one. However, with Lutz being in the capital city of this domain, it would be truly pointless for him to become a travelling merchant. But after Otto breaks down Lutz's goal, he reveals mine's proposed alternative, and looks almost sad here. I think this is likely because the person who supported him was secretly trying to prevent him from achieving his aim of becoming a travelling merchant. And although he understands that mine was looking out for him, we can also understand that Lutz would probably feel hurt from this, that his trust was slightly damaged. Benno then intimidatingly asks if he wants to be a merchant. It's again nice to see that Lutz gets reassured and answers once mine holds his hand. It shows that he does still trust her. But after stating he does want to be a merchant, Benno asks what he can sell and what he wants to sell. This stuff is obviously important because it determines your market, how much competition you will have, along with other stuff. However, Lutz doesn't have an answer, leading Benno to say they're done here. With Lutz on the verge of crying, Mine asks him if he wants to make her paper. This nice request from Mine gives Lutz the courage to declare his new goal of making Mine's ideas reality. This understandably makes Benno ask if Mine too wants to become a merchant, to which she says as a second option. I do love Otto's optimism here though, wondering if her first option is to handle paperwork at the gate. Keep dreaming, Otto. But Mine then says she wants to be a librarian or bookseller, her goal from day one. Both Otto and Benno look confused by the word librarian, which makes sense given that the only libraries I can recall learning about were in the Sovereignty, far away from our city of Erinfest. But when Mine explains it's a caretaker of books, Benno laughs and says that's a job for nobility. It's always those pesky nobles getting everything Mine wants. The conversation then moves on to business, with Benno inquiring into current ideas. Mine then reveals that she wants to produce and sell paper, not made from animal skin. We then get a back and forth between Benno and Mine, with her revealing she intends to use plants. It will be cheaper than parchment, and that they'll have a prototype by the time of their baptism, although she keeps the method confidential. After hearing this, Benno accepts their proposal and the meeting concludes. Following Mine and Lutz's departure, we see Benno say Mine is incredibly unusual for an unbaptized child of a soldier, as both her speech and conduct don't match the upbringing she should have had. Benno then remarks that if they succeed in making plant-based paper, the market would be turned upside down, a very accurate assessment considering what happened when paper reached Europe in our world. I mean, when was the last time you wrote on parchment made from animal skin? Otto then gets panicked when he realizes Benno intends to make Mine and Lutz his apprentices, but I don't think there will be much Otto can do about that. On the walk home we see Lutz telling Mine to not get too worked up or she'll get another fever, showing us that he already has a good understanding of Mine's health, and its limits. But after Lutz makes her realize they don't have the tools to make paper, we reach the midpoint of the episode. Returning to the episode, we see Thule shocked to find out that Mine and Lutz were accepted to be apprentices. Effa informs her that it's only a conditional offer though. We then move to Mine and see her going through the equipment she will need to make paper. Mine then tells us about the paper making process, using a method similar to the ancient Japanese process of producing washi paper. I'll just let Mine explain the method as she does it well.
まず木を切って蒸して皮を剥ぐさらに皮を剥いで余分なものを取り除いたら繊維を叩いて溶きほぐす次に取り出した繊維と水ととろろを混ぜて紙をすくついた紙に重しをして水を絞るそれを乾かしたら出来上がり
But after telling us the method, she states that they'll just have to make the tools themselves. Gunter then returns home and immediately starts trying to console Mine about the meeting, which she gets reasonably irritated by. I do have an issue with the way her family acts here. I agree with their intentions, but I feel like they should have waited to find out how the meeting had gone before assuming the worst. Also, considering how supportive her family are, and that they have seen her create many unusual things by this point, I find it strange to think that her family would assume she would fail. But maybe that's because I'm not looking at it through their eyes. They might have thought it nearly impossible to get an apprenticeship without a referral, and that's why they were doubtful. But even then, she kind of had Otto referring them, so I'm not sure. The next day, Mine confronts Lutz about finding a tree for their wood, and he says he'll ask someone. She then shows him the designs for the equipment they need and asks if he could make them. However, Lutz says he can't do it without nails, and Mine then looks a bit panicked. We now move to the gate where Mine tells Otto about their dilemma of not having the equipment to make the equipment they need. Otto just laughs and says that they'll just need to make the nails first then, which is a funny response, but I also wouldn't put it past Mine to do it. Mine then asks him why he became a soldier, which feels like a random change in topic, but oh well. Otto begins a monologue about his reason, but Mine thankfully gives us a brief rundown, saying he fell in love, bought citizenship, and became a soldier. It's nice to see that Otto is looking entranced just by the thought of his wife. It shows just how much he loves her. But Otto then proposes a deal to Mine, the recipe for the simple all-in-one shampoo, in exchange for the nails. Mine obviously can't give out this confidential information for some nails, however, so she counter-offers with a sample instead, to which Otto accepts. It's the day of Mine's visit to Otto's, and she comments on how it hardly feels the same as downtown, probably because of the nice buildings and the nicer outfits of the people here. But Mine says she's never been to the north side of town, where all the nice buildings supposedly are. After commenting on how soldiers are usually poor, Mine asks why Otto lives in a nice area, to which he says his wife's brother didn't want her living far away, so they live in the family home. Once we arrive, we see that Otto's home is far nicer than Mine's, and it certainly looks like a beautiful place to live. We now meet Karina, and she is dressed in nice clothing, also with her hair tied up. Karina then comments on her politeness before immediately going to the hair. By the start of the next episode, we will find out that Karina is Benno's sister, and so I just wonder, does this scene hint at the two being related? Because Benno also commented on her politeness before focusing on her hair. Am I overthinking this, or was it intentional? I'm going to assume it's intentional. Mine then informs us that despite Karina being young, she is ranked highly in the Seamstress Guild. I love the analogy that Thule was greener than her hair with envy. That one really made me laugh. But we find out that Karina is Thule's idol, which would make sense given that Thule is also a seamstress now. Also, this room just screams seamstress with all the designs on the walls, the nice clothes hung up or on mannequins, and the fabric folded neatly in the corner. After Mine washes Karina's hair and thanks is given, Karina asks how Otto is at work. We see that she's been worried about making him give up his life as a merchant, which is nice as it shows Karina also cares about Otto like he does her. However, Mine quickly reassures her by saying Otto is still a merchant at work. Karina then shows Otto her hair, and he makes a ridiculous face before trying to rush Mine away, but she won't leave until she gets her nails. but Otto hastily gives them to her before closing the door to spend time with Karina. We now move to the forest where Mine and Lutz are making a decal using their newly acquired nails. The decal is just the frame that contains the pulp and controls the size of the paper. After creating a prototype, Mine asks if Lutz could do it to precise measurements, but he doesn't have the tools for that, and given the lack of support from his parents, it's unlikely that he could borrow some. Later in the day, we see Otto give them an invitation to meet Benno. We now get a flashback to the meeting, and see Mine return to ask Otto if he knows about her illness. Convenient that she chose right now to ask, but anyway, after she leaves, Benno tells Otto that her illness could be the devouring. So we finally have a name for this strange illness, but the only thing Benno tells us about it is that Mine will die soon. And with that light-hearted revelation, the main episode ends. Chibi segment time, and this week we start with Ferdinand congratulating Mine on getting closer to papermaking. However, Mine then asks him what Benno meant by saying she will die soon if it's the devouring, to which Ferdinand says it's exactly that. He then teases Mine by starting a ghost story about how people with the devouring die, before Mine tells him to stop and the episode ends. Thanks for watching and I hope you enjoyed, and please leave your thoughts below. Bye!